is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So the Six Nations is over. As I've been doing through the Six Nations, I've done a Team of the Week every week at the end of the round. The players who I would think performing the best. It wasn't so much following stats. I had a couple of rules around it. But I thought it'd be fun. The tournament is over now, so I thought maybe I would do a Team of the Tournament video. Like it will be sort of like the Team of the Week. A lot of things will have to change with the rules. I wasn't allowed to move players or keep their shirt positions. It's going to be a little bit more difficult because so many people have moved positions over the tournament. So what I've done is I've written down a 1 to 15 of who I think was the best, and then I've sort of looked up afterwards some of their stats just to try and back up why I've done it. But like I said, for all the Team of the Week videos, this is obviously going to be my team. This probably won't be your team, so make sure you drop down in the comments who your 1 to 15 is. I'm sure there'll be some contentious ones, and I'm sure people will tell me why I'm wrong. So let's start off at the loose head. So I had a couple of names written down here. There was only a choice of 2 for me that really stood out through this tournament, as they have been in the Team of the Week videos. One being Cyril Bai. I thought he did very well through most of the tournament. He was doing an awful lot of good work. I will try and do my best on going through these why I maybe didn't pick some of the other people over the others. So for me, the person I'm going to pick at my loose head position is going to be Wyn Jones. I thought he had a fantastic tournament. For the first 3 or 4 weeks, he was topping the boards in terms of like tackling. His scrummaging work was really good. Towards the round 4 and 5, there were some penalties going against him. There could be a bit of a red mark on his name there, but I think he played very well through the tournament. I don't think a lot of loose heads really stood out to me from a couple of the teams, so I think Wyn Jones was definitely a standout, probably a close by Cyril Bai, but for me, loose head goes to Wyn Jones. Into the hooker position, there were certainly a couple of people here that definitely put their hand up throughout the tournament. I thought George Turner played very well for Scotland through a lot of games. He just got a little bit rattled in that Ireland game. They sort of took control a little bit, including David Cherry actually came on in the Italy game, managing to get himself 2 tries. Thought Scotland hookers have been doing very, very well. Ken Owens, I thought, was playing very well. I could definitely see a couple of people wanting to pick Ken Owens there. Been very consistent through the whole tournament. But for me, my standout hooker is going to go to Julian Marchand. He was just playing fantastic through most of the tournament, in all honesty, stepping in. I mean, he's managing to keep Camille Chat out of that shirt, and that's a very difficult task to do. He's got himself into the top 10 turnovers in the tournament, which is insane. Why is a hooker getting the most turnovers? That's stupid. It should never be happening, but he's managed to get himself there. He was also in the top 10 in terms of offloads. We knew how good the French scrum was as well. I mean, he was definitely integral in that. Breakdown work was just superb. So I think all round, I think he's been fantastic for the tournament. So for me, I'm going to pick Julian Marchand. Into the tight head, and there has been one consistent name through most of my Team of the Week videos. There have been a couple of other people that have done relatively well in the tournament. I thought Kyle Sinclair's been doing very well at scrummaging, considering that England team is not doing well at the minute. They're going to struggle an awful lot, but I actually think Kyle Sinclair was doing very well in terms of scrummaging. Tom Francis was playing very well for Wales. I think he even ended up in one of my Team of the Weeks, had one of his heads bandaged up. That might have even been the England game. I thought he played very well in that game, and through the tournament he's been doing very, very well. But for me, the standout name, as he has been in so many Team of the Weeks, Tadhg Furlong has had an exceptional tournament. In the Autumn Nations Cup, my sort of player for the tight head position definitely went to Andrew Porter. I thought he was outstanding in the Autumn Nations Cup, and Tadhg Furlong has kept him out of that shirt. He's had a fantastic tournament. We all got to see him do some side steps. Always nice to see a prop doing side steps. Aggression, ball carrying has been superb. Managing to get a few tackle breaks there. The scrummaging work from him has been absolutely superb. Breakdown work, brilliant. Defensive work, brilliant. All round, absolutely superb. Can definitely see that man putting his hand up for a Lion shirt. So for me, my tight head goes to Tadhg Furlong. Into the locks department. Now, a couple of people will be annoyed here, so move your fingers away from your mice and not needing to click the dislike button. Let me talk you through the locks choices. There was definitely a lot of people who have put their hands up for locks. There's been a lot of locks also swapping to flankers in this tournament, which has been really hard to keep track of. So a couple of people that have been doing well. Probably one of the few England names to stand out, Maro Itoje. He had a bad game against Wales, and everyone on that team had a bad game against Scotland, but realistically, through most of the tournament, Itoje has been good. In terms of turnovers, he was pretty high. He was the 4th highest turnover rate worker. I thought he had very good term in terms of turnover. Got himself a couple of tries, including the one that allowed them to beat France. So I can definitely see a couple of people wanting him in that number 4 shirt. For me, I'm going to pick Ian Henderson. This is mainly going to come down to just general competency across the board. He has played very well in this tournament. He is the 2nd highest turnover player in the tournament. He's won the 2nd most line-outs out of anyone in the tournament. I think he's played extremely well. He had to come on when James Ryan was out, so he had to fill in at the number 5 shirt, swap back to the number 4 shirt, took on captaincy for a game, really managing to do well in that team. I think he's led the team from the front, doing very well. That Ireland breakdown scenario has been a key leader in being involved in that. I think he's been absolutely superb. So for me, my number 4 shirt is going to go to Ian Henderson. Number 5, a couple of people here will either raise an eyebrow or just give it a big tick box. I've written a name down here that I think a lot of people will either definitely have or will absolutely not understand. For me, at number 5, I'm going to pick Alan Wynne-Jones, and here's why. He's managed to earn himself, he was the 4th highest tackler in the tournament. I thought he was absolutely superb in terms of his defensive work was very good. There was definitely a few penalties given away that he didn't need to, but the sheer aggression he showed on the pitch, I think Alan Wynne, I'm probably going to be one of the few people, again, move away from the dislike button. Alan Wynne, for the past year or so, hasn't been on top form. He's a very good captain and he's very good at trying to lead a team. But in terms of the number 5 shirt, I think it's fair to say there are definitely better number 5s in Northern Hemisphere rugby. But the offer of what he brings in terms of captaincy is a huge impact on a team. He's led them to win the Six Nations. I think he's done very well there. He's got himself involved straight from the off. I saw him hobbling in a couple of games. He doesn't leave the field. Always tries to play the full 80 minutes. He played every minute in this game apart from when he was playing Italy. Of course, he only played half a game there. They didn't want him to get injured. I think he had a superb tournament realistically. So I think a couple of people here might want to swap out for a number 5 that may actually be technically a better number 5 at playing in the role. But I think for general impact on the tournament, I think he is absolutely superb. So Alan Wynne-Jones is going to take my number 5 shirt. Moving on to the blindside flanker at number 6. Definitely a lot of people putting their hands up for this one. I thought Navidi has been absolutely amazing through this tournament. I think he's been very consistent. Got himself a man of the match against the Italy team. I thought he played very well. Jamie Ritchie has been doing really well for the Scotland team as well, especially in terms of turnovers. Just needs to keep his discipline under. Sometimes he can get his hands on the ball a little bit, but definitely playing well in this tournament. We didn't get to see an awful lot from Mark Wilson, so I don't think I'd be picking Mark Wilson in there. And from France, there was a couple of switching up. Of course, Dylan Cretin came in an awful lot. There was a lot of switching between him and Jelonch, which sort of mixed it up a little bit. You don't know quite who's at the top of their game because they kept swapping them out every game. But to me, there's been one man who has been exceptional through this tournament. I think he is arguable for player of the tournament. I know he's nominated for a fact, so that could be one reason. But he's been in every single one of my team of the weeks. I think he's been absolutely brilliant through the tournament. So for me, my blindside flanker is going to go to Tyg Byrne. He has been absolutely brilliant. He has played 4, 5 and 6 through this tournament. He just swaps positions and does amazing through every single position. He's in the top 10 carries in the tournament. He has the most turnovers in the tournament, and he has won the 3rd most lineouts in the tournament. He has got stats coming out of his ears. If you're Ian Henderson, you must be hating that he is in that team, because I think Ian Henderson might have even put his own hand up for getting in as player of the tournament, but I think Tyg Byrne's just managed to outshine him a little bit. So for me, in that number 6 shirt goes to Tyg Byrne. Open side flanker has definitely been very competitive. Tipuric doing well, as we always like him to see. I think Tom Curry has done, probably again, he's one of the few names from the England team sheet you could actually realistically put in a team of the tournament. Tom Curry's been doing big work for that England team. Only really had a bad game against Scotland, and then since then I actually think he played really well through most of the tournament. Will Connors played well when he took over at number 7. Unfortunately, he went through an injury, so we didn't get to see him for quite the same length of time. Oliver, we didn't get to see quite as much from. He definitely had an alright tournament. He just didn't get to see quite the impact he had on last year's tournament with how many tries he was scoring. He did get top in terms of lineouts won, so it's definitely a big positive in his area, managing to captain the team. I think he had a relatively good tournament. But to me, the name that had to go down on this team sheet, and I imagine would be on most people's team sheet, including potentially Warren Gatland's in the Lion team, my open side flanker has to go to Hamish Watson. He has been absolutely brilliant in this tournament, just in every single area. There was a weird comment at the start of the tournament where one of the commentators said people don't know a lot about Hamish Watson. I don't know how people don't know a lot about Hamish Watson. He is absolutely superb. He has the second most carries in the tournament. He's in the top 10 for turnovers, and that's being very harsh. I think he's something like 6 in top turnovers in the tournament. He's made absolutely tremendous meters. I remember I think it was the Italy game, he made something like 130 odd meters, which for a flanker is just outrageous. You should never be making that many meters. I think he's played absolutely fantastic. So for me, at number 7 has to go to Hamish Watson. Number 8 has certainly been competitive. We haven't got to see an awful lot from Billy Vunipola that we would have liked to, and then of course he went out with his own little injury, so we didn't get to see an awful lot from him. Gregory Aldrit has been playing very well for France. There's a lot of penalties going against him, which he just needs to keep his eye on in terms of his own personal game, but I think he's been very instrumental. He's been in my team of the week a couple of times actually. I think he's played very well. Breakdown work and ball carrying for him especially has been very, very impressive. Matt Fagerson was doing really well for Scotland. It's so nice to see Scotland have a really powerful number 8. We haven't got to see it for a long time. I've called him the mini CJ Stander. He's been absolutely brilliant, especially in that backfield. They're really beginning to like having a backfield player catch the ball, offload it to Matt Fagerson and just let him smash the line. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him for the full tournament. Obviously, he went out with that little injury, and Nick Hayden came in, who also actually didn't have a terrible game. We just didn't get to see the full tournament from Matt Fagerson, which for me was a bit of a red mark on his thing, but not his own fault. CJ Stander has been outstanding in this tournament, especially in terms of just carries. I think he's the top carrier in the tournament, if I've got that correct. 72 carries he's made in this tournament, absolutely superb. Managed to swap to flanker at one point. He did move to the number 6 channel. I think it was when Peter O'Mahony was still out, so he did manage to do well. A lot of movement about, but he's definitely been big in the ball carrying department. But for me, I'm a man who likes consistency, and someone that has been absolutely consistent through the tournament has been Talupe Faletau. He's never sort of topped the board on anything, but just in terms of consistency has been absolutely brilliant. He's the 3rd highest carrier in the tournament. He's in the top 10 for meters made, and he's in the top 3 for tackles made. Definitely putting in a big shift in every single game. We've seen him from the back of scrums and mauls, wanting to take that ball in. In terms of the ball carrying, he's not afraid, even on his own try line when I said he shouldn't do it. A couple of times he's definitely gone for it. Super aggressive player. I think, especially with CJ Stander now retiring, I definitely think we can see that line ship potentially going to Talupe Faletau. I think he's played very well, so for me, my number 8 goes to Faletau. Into the scrum half. A couple of people here trying very hard. Normally when we see scrum halves, there's normally one real standout player, but in all honesty, scrum halves have tried to do a little bit better this year. Conor Murray started off on a very low point at the start of this tournament and has increased, especially in that final game against England. Thought he was very, very good. Jamison Gibson-Park has done well, even managing to keep Conor Murray out after he came back from injury. Thought he played very well. Ben Young started off poor, and for me slowly increased through the tournament, getting slowly better and better. Stephen Varney, at a young age, he's only like 19 or something, he's played very well, has the 2nd most passes in the tournament on 279. I think he's playing very well in that Italy team. The speed of the ball recycling in the back of that maul has been very, very good for him. So I think Stephen Varney's actually played very well. Ali Price is definitely beginning to become very, very impressive. Has played 2nd string for Greg Laidlaw for so long. It's definitely nice to see Ali Price taking the limelight now. Got himself top passes in the tournament on 347, so a significant amount over the top. I'm sure the final 5 minutes in that France game will have helped his stats an awful lot. Just like to see him run a little bit with the ball a little bit more, but definitely on the up and up, and maybe he could even be looking for a Lion shirt at some point. But for me, as I imagine it will be for a lot of people, my scrum half shirt has to go to Antoine Dupont. I thought he had a very good tournament. He had 3 absolutely solid games. He got shut down a little bit in the England game. They played very well at being able to try and stop him doing a lot, but still, there's a couple of fantastic out the back door passes going round. He did get shut down very well in the Scotland game. That came down to a lot of very good Scottish defence, but I think through the tournament he's been absolutely superb. Of course, we got to see him score tries. He's the joint 4th top try scorer in the tournament. He's made the most offloads in the tournament. He has the most try assists and the 3rd highest pass rate out of the tournament. So the stats absolutely backing Antoine Dupont. I believe he's up for a nominee again for player of the tournament. He's really pushing for it. I think he's superb. He's got to definitely be one of, if not the best scrum half in Northern Hemisphere rugby at this point. I think he's absolutely superb. So my scrum half goes to Antoine Dupont. Into the fly half division, definitely a lot of people here. I think every team actually has played very well in terms of the fly halves. It was looking a little bit lax at the start of the tournament and slowly has begun to increase. I think this will personally come down to your own bias in rugby as who you want to pick here. George Ford, it's been a little bit quiet, George Ford, hasn't he? He's had a couple of good games, especially when he's playing against France, managing to step up a little bit. It's just been very quiet through the tournament. Garbisi has again shone very well. He's still managing to keep Tomaso Alan out of that team. That's a difficult job, especially with how good Tomaso Alan is. I think Garbisi's doing very well. I'm really excited to see where his career leads him. Dan Bigger has been struggling for the first couple of games. I've seen a couple of people seem to have forgotten how poor he was at the start of the tournament. First 2 games was nowhere, had nothing going on, and really began to turn his game around, managed to step in really well. Right at the end, that game he had against France, he could have got man of the match. I think he had a fantastic game. Callum Sheedy coming on from the bench, the impact boy from the bench, playing very well. We're nice to see someone who's coming on from the bench. I think he can maybe even look again for a Lions shirt there. Just the impact from the bench from him has been huge. Jalibert played very well. Billy Burns didn't manage to do quite as much. I'm just sort of looking through the list of names. And then, of course, Roman Entomac coming back from injury, having to try and regain his place in that team, which was helped by Jalibert going out. I thought Jalibert actually played very well. I believe Jalibert actually had very good stats, in all honesty. Yeah, he was the 5th highest score point runner. Finn Russell doing well. Nice to see him getting back into a good form in rugby. The passing game was fantastic, as we like to see from him. Kicking game was good. Running play was good. For him, discipline. The trip in the first game got himself a yellow card. The elbow in that final game getting himself a red card. Discipline needs to be sorted out for Finn Russell. So for me, it comes down purely to consistency. I'm going to go for the most consistent fly half, who was Johnny Sexton, scoring the most points in the tournament. He also scored the most penalties in the tournament. He got the second most conversions, which isn't his fault. People need to score more tries for him to get the top conversions. He had a 96% kicking rate towards the post and was in the top 10 for passes. I think all across the board, if you want a reliable fly half that you know is going to turn up to every single game. Maybe he didn't have the best first game and there was a potential injury going in there, but when he came back into the team, he really made it his own. It's nice to see him getting back into a top form, because Ireland need a good fly half. We've got to see how bad they can be if they don't have a solid fly half like they had in that Wales game. So it's nice to see Johnny Sexton back in top form. So for me, I'm going to pick Johnny Sexton. On to the left wing, and left wing was certainly quiet in this tournament. I don't think we got to see as much from Johnny May as we would have liked to. Monty Ioane doing well in terms of attacking for Italy, getting himself a couple of tries in there actually. Defensive work, not necessarily the best from him, which is definitely the sort of area I'd like to see him improve on. Josh Adams, having missed a couple of games because of COVID breach, definitely came back, got himself a couple of tries, including the one people hated in the England game, but I thought was absolutely superb. Thought he had a fantastic finish. James Lowe, certainly trying very hard at the start of the tournament, but again began to fall off, allowing room for Stockdale to get back in the team. But yeah, James Lowe unfortunately beginning to fail towards the end of that tournament for me. But someone that has stood out in that left wing shirt and has done consistently through this tournament to me has to go to Duhan van der Merwe. We know how much of a monster he is. He is an absolute machine. I have called him an X-Men in the past. He reminds me of Wolverine. He's the top try scorer of the tournament. That's certainly something you want to be seeing from your wingers, and has made the most tackle breaks by far. Very hard man to stop. We know how dangerous he can be. All he needs is a bit of room and potentially a bit of a lax defender on him, and he will run through you. I think he's played absolutely superb, and in all honesty, I think again a Lions shirt could be coming his way. An awful lot of left wingers not really putting their hand up in this tournament. So for me, left wing goes to Duhan van der Merwe. Centres were certainly a bit questionable in this tournament, mainly because so many in the outside centre played so well, and there were so few names really sticking out to me on the inside centre channel. So let's start off with number 12 on the inside centre. Jonathan Davis, I think, is really struggling for Wales. We just haven't got to see an awful lot for him. Owen Farrell's trying. He's trying very hard to make that team work for him. I just think England have struggled so much in this tournament. They've really struggled to stand out in any way, shape or form. Carlo Canna has played well for Italy. He's managing to do okay in that inside centre channel, to be fair to him. Cameron Redpath, of course, we only got to see for one game. He was very impressive in that game. We just, of course, fell out for Scotland. Sam Johnson, having some relatively good games. I would just like to see him reach that extra little step for me. Ficou playing well at that 12 shirt, and Arthur Vincent, of course, also filled in at 12. So there's a couple of people everywhere. So for me, one person that he did play 12 and 13, but I want him in the team somewhere. I definitely think he works well in that 12. I actually think he might work better in the outside centre. But for me, I'm going to pick Robbie Henshaw. I think he's had a very good tournament, definitely managing to step up. Of course, Robbie Henshaw was out of the team for a little while, so it's nice to see him back in. When did he come back in? About a year, 18 months, 2 years ago. He came back into the team and he's really managing to do well. Keeping Bundyaki out is no easy feat. Of course, Bundyaki came in for one game and immediately got sent off. So I think Robbie Henshaw's doing very well. 4th most carries in the tournament. He only gave away a single penalty in the entire tournament, which I think is an outstanding thing. Most players will tend to give away penalties. Had an 87% tackle rate. Thought he did very well. We got to see how many line breaks he had as well, managing to avoid the defenders when he needs to, and the meters he can make, because he's a fast player. I think he played very well. So for me, on the inside centre channel, I'm going to give to Robbie Henshaw. Which moves us on to the outside centre. Again, a difficult position. I genuinely think everyone in the outside centre position played very well in this tournament. This was the tournament for 13s to really show off. Ringrose played very well for the first half of the tournament, and he began to fall off in one of the games. I forget who he was playing now. Gave away an awful lot of penalties, and then of course we didn't really get to see him after that. I believe he picked up an injury along the way, so it's a bit of a shame for him. Henry Slade, I actually thought another name that was doing relatively well for the England team. He certainly was doing big damage to the Wales defence when they played in that game. Again, picking himself up an injury though. We didn't get to see Adogwu at all, which was a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen him. And Ollie Lawrence really not doing an awful lot in that tournament for me. Ignacio Brex, sort of hit and miss on some games, but the defensive work and the aggression in each individual game was very, very good. It just sort of not the consistency I'd like to see from him, but definitely playing very well. Vakatawa was, again, a little bit quiet for me. I definitely would have liked to have seen a little bit more. In all honesty, I actually think Arthur Vincent played a little bit better than Vakatawa in that outside centre channel. So for me, a bit of an outrageous one here, which I can't believe I'm going to put down, because I haven't actually included him in a single team of the week through this tournament. But for me, I'm going to pick George North in my outside centre, and I will explain why before everyone starts kicking off and saying so many players are better. George North hasn't been in a single team of the week, which was a weird decision. And I think it's mainly because every single week someone has managed to outshine him for me in that outside centre channel for one reason or another. Sometimes it was Ringrose making good moves around the outside. Sometimes it was Henshaw managing to have good breaking throughs. There's always been someone who's managed to outshine him just that little bit more every week. However, every single week, he's definitely the second name I have. Every single week I've got North written down on a piece of paper. He's really managed to fill himself in at that outside centre channel. I would like to see him on the wing. I have said throughout the tournament I would maybe like to see it if Zammit went to the left wing and North on the right wing. He's playing very well at the Ospreys. It's so nice to see George North back in form, and I don't know what Pivac has managed to do, but he's managed to get George North into a form, and I really don't think it's actually been spoken about enough, including myself. I don't think I've actually acknowledged how good he's been. He's become a real threat in that centre channel. We know how big he is in terms of size and weight, smashing through players, having to take so many players with him. Watching him in the breakdown game that I did against France, every single time he had the ball, he took about 2 men with him to tackle him and still made meters after the tackle. Thinking he's doing really well. I genuinely think he was the most consistent centre throughout this. Even though he was never necessarily the top, he was always at second place, which I think makes him the most consistent, and that's why he's in my team. He also got himself 2 tries in the tournament, which is, nice to be seen from North, getting back on that try scoring technique. And also in defence, it's been fantastic, and no one's talking about how good his defence was. 92% successful tackles. That is a huge number, especially at centre, where you have so many players hitting you. We got to see how good he was in the wide channels in that defensive line against the England team and again against the French team. I think he's playing very well. So for me, outside centre is going to go to George North. Moving on to the right wing. A couple of people here definitely putting their hands up. Damien Penaud and Teddy Thomas have both played on that right wing. They've swapped over an awful lot, so it's been quite hard to gauge how well they've been on that right wing compared to the left wing. But ultimately have been playing extremely extremely well, both getting themselves tries. Thought it's been very, very impressive from the both of them. Anthony Watson getting himself a couple of tries as well. Again, another name that is not on the top of a lot of people's list, but Anthony Watson's been playing very well in this tournament. He's been the only real attacking threat I've seen from that England team in terms of a one-off runner. Certainly outplaying Johnny May in terms of that winger position. Keith Earls has been playing very well for Ireland. Again, I think someone that's maybe flown under the radar for an awful lot of people. Turnover rate from him has been good, tackle rate's been good, and attacking rate has been very good in terms of breakaway tries. Getting himself a try against England in that game I thought was very good, very instrumental in winning that game. I think Keith Earls has played very, very well. And Darcy Graham. Darcy Graham's played well, and Sean Maitland's played on that wing a little bit. There's been an awful lot of swapping around in a lot of the teams, so it's been quite difficult to pin down a right wing. But for me, the name I think a lot of people will have on their list. Another one announced for player of the tournament. For me, the right wing has to go to Louis Rees-Zammit. Think he has been exceptional in this tournament. He's a young lad. He's come out of nowhere. He's the second top try scorer. It's such a shame he's lost that out to Duhan van der Merwe just in the final seconds of that France game. He is basically just a game winner. There are so many games that Wales played in that, including Scotland and Ireland. If that boy doesn't get a try, they lose those games. I think he's an incredible player, and it's someone you want on the team, someone you know you can have on the team and at any point can just turn that game around from you. He had a try disallowed against Italy. He nearly scored that diving try against France. He's just hungry for tries. The speed is exceptional. He outran both Johnny May and Elliot Daly running back for that ball against England. I think he's absolutely fantastic and certainly a player I will be watching very close to see how his career grows. So for me, on the right wing has to go to Louis Rees-Zammit. And finally, the fullback position. Fullbacks have struggled in this tournament for a variety of reasons. Elliot Daly, we won't even go into. Truler has just been all over the place. He's been struggling so much. Liam Williams has had minutes of shining brilliance, managing to stop tries and holding tries up over the line, but at the same time has sometimes been the exact source for missing the tackle that leads to a try. So he's been a little bit on and off for me. And then Keenan, again, been a bit quiet. Played very well in the Wales game. Having to fill in when Peter O'Mahony was out. He filled in at flanker and played fullback and was on the winger a little bit. Definitely moving around an awful lot. But for me, this came down to two names. And of course, everyone immediately is going to put down the name Hogg because it's Stuart Hogg and everyone loves Stuart Hogg. And in all honesty, this has been the hardest choice out of every single position, I think, because Dulan and Hogg are incredibly even. It is actually outstanding. Number of try assists: Dulan 2, Stuart Hogg 2. It's like, and it just goes down the list. Passes made, they're probably all the same. There are so many equal things. This comes down to personal preference. I can see a lot of people wanting Dulan. I can see a lot of people wanting Hogg. For me, Hogg has definitely come back into form. It's something people have been craving. I am one of the probably the few people who don't believe Stuart Hogg has been very good for the past couple of years. I know it's sort of sacrilege and people will kick off about that, but I genuinely think for the last 2 years, Stuart Hogg has been chasing the sort of legend of himself. He's a big name in World Rugby. I thought he had a terrible Autumn Nations Cup and he got named in the team of the tournament as the best fullback. I thought it was astonishing. But this tournament for me, he has come on leaps and bounds, and this is the Stuart Hogg you definitely want to see. The counter running was absolutely brilliant. The dodging the players, the kicking has been superb in terms of distance and finding grass. He filled in at fly half for one game. Thought he did very well in that, certainly managing to get quite a few conversions. It helped they had a lot of tries. The kicking percentage wasn't particularly fantastic in that game, but I think he did very, very well. He's the third highest for metres made on 438. I think he's had a very, very good tournament. But for me, don't go crazy in the comments. I'm going to say my fullback has to go to Dulan. I think he's been superb through this tournament, and it's so hard to compete with someone like Stuart Hogg, but he is just absolutely everywhere. I did get some stats down for Dulan. He is the top metres made in the tournament. He is the 4th top try scorer. He is in the top 10 for try assists. I just think he's been brilliant as a general player. That France team, I think, would have lost more games had Dulan not been in the team. Stuart Hogg also had to go into fly half for one of the games, so it's also that game sort of became a little bit void for the first sort of 60 minutes until Sean Maitland came off. So for me, I'm going to go for Bryce Doolan, but I can absolutely understand why people would want to go for Stuart Hogg. It's so nice to see him in that position, but for me, Bryce Doolan just doing that little bit more. And there we go, guys. That is going to be my team of the tournament. I feel like I have been recording for absolutely ages. I have no long how long this video is going to be, but make sure you drop down in the comments who your team of the tournament is. Make sure you put down the 1 to 15, because like I said, this is of course my team of the tournament, but it's probably completely different to yours, so I like to see everyone else's team, so make sure you drop them down in the comments. I hope everyone's enjoyed the videos across the Six Nations as they've been going on. I do have a couple more ideas, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the videos as they come out. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.